Aside from being a personal friend of mine, Lisa and her husband, Dimitri, were born in, we can say the year, right? Because you're still young. Were born in 1964. Good Lord, that's the year I went to the Archdiocese. Both grew up in a middle-class home in Queens, and they met in 1982 while at the NYU Chemical Lab. They endured pre-med together, and they went on to Stony Brook School of Medicine and graduated in 1990. Both of them were the first medical doctors from their families, which made your parents very proud. And before residency, they married and they moved to New York City. Lisa went on to do her residency in Manhattan Eye, Ear, and Throat Hospital, and Dimitri did his urology residency in Long Island Jewish Hospital. We try to keep all the faiths together, so it's good. Lisa and Dimitri both started private practices in their respective field here in New York in 1996. They have two sons, Alexander, who was born in 1996, and Michael, who you will hear about, who was born in 1997. Their story today is not about medicine or the struggles of residency or COVID. It is the ongoing fight to help their son Michael, born with autistic, and their 24-year battle to help create a wonderful life for their son, where all other young children with autism could function and learn to have a so-called normal life here in America. It appears that their life experiences have been focusing on goals, achieving goals, and helping other people who have problems. They have been very prepared for the struggle before them, and they have dealt with it with great honor and humility. And Michael is truly blessed to have such wonderful parents as Dr. Caceres and Dr. Lisa Liberatore, who gave up, after all their medical professional accolades, they gave up their profession so that they could help their son, but other children with similar needs. So we are honored to have with us today Dr. Lisa Liberatore, Dr. Caceres, and also their beloved executive director, Mark Biandi. And we want you to all listen to this presentation and have your hearts touched the way we all feel.
Thank you, everybody. And thank you for inviting us here today. We're super honored for your eminence. So welcome to see you. And I know you visited us in Tribeca, and that was a wonderful experience for all of us 2 years ago. And thank you to Paulette. This was just an incredibly organized event, and my husband and I are happy to join Leadership 100 and to get to know all of you, hopefully over the next few years. Autism is a complex condition, and there's a famous phrase that says, if you know one person with autism, you know one person with autism. But with autism being diagnosed in 1 in 44 births now, I'm pretty sure everybody in the room either knows somebody with autism or has been affected personally with somebody with autism. And autism is a neurodevelopmental disorder, which means it can be diagnosed before the age of 3. And it has quite a lot of aspects, and that's why it's called a spectrum disorder. And not everybody has all of the characteristics of all those things on the spectrum, but everybody has, I would say, a common thread. And I've seen this now. My son is now 24 years old, and I do believe that after 24 years of having the ability to spend time with Michael and with so many others on the spectrum, I can tell you that there's a common thread that runs through them. And that is a difficulty with socialization. They don't really pick up on social cues like many of us will. They have a difficulty with communication. My son has a difficulty expressing himself verbally, so what we call severe autism. And they have a tremendous amount of anxiety, which might not be something that you would feel anxious about. And lastly is repetitive behaviors, which we call stimming. And those are the things that maybe make you identify somebody with autism if you see them in the community. And that's usually because of anxiety. And I want to kind of reiterate that because it's a feeling of somebody not being comfortable. So I'm going to take you through my story because I think it can teach us a lot about autism in general and what this means to a family. And so you can understand better and hopefully be more accepting to those young people in your community. This is Michael and Alexander, my other son, my husband Dimitri and I, and this is in 1997. This is actually a christening picture, and we actually had to take this picture 2 weeks after the actual baptism. And that's because I was not able to get one single picture that day of Michael where he was looking in the camera, where he was happy. He was very irritable, crying the whole day. And so we had to dress up again and go to take professional photos. And he wasn't diagnosed at this age, but retrospectively, there was lots of signs. And this is the benefit of my going ahead for all these young families, that they can identify the inability to make eye contact, the sensory sensitivity, the fact that he would never respond to his name, but yet would hear Barney playing in the other room and go running, so didn't startle when the fire truck was passing. These were all signs, but I really had no clue. Even though I was a doctor at this point, I had never read anything or been taught anything about autism in school. I probably knew as much as anyone else did about autism, referring to Rain Man, right? That's all I knew. So a seminal moment in our lives is this picture, and that's Father Alex, 25 years ago. And it was a little church at that time, the Dormition of the Virgin Mary in Southampton. And Dimitri and I drove up, and we wanted to find a place to do a 40-day blessing for Michael. And Father Alex was sweeping the steps outside. And we said, can we do a blessing here? And that's how the relationship started, never knowing how much this relationship would deeply affect our lives and the future. Michael's diagnosis was made at the age of 2 and a few months. And the pediatrician casually said, he's not speaking. After New Year's, if he's still not speaking, I want you to do early intervention. So he said that pretty casually. I felt it was going to be some speech. I brought Michael by myself to the evaluation. There's no blood test. There's no x-rays. It's just a series of observations, and at the end of the day, I was like, okay, let's get some speech. And the doctor reached over and said, I know what he's got, I know what he's got. And I said, what does he have? He said he has PDD. And I said, what's PDD? I never heard of this. Well, it's a spectrum of autism, and that's pretty much all you have to hear, and then you go kind of blank. I picked him up, walked downstairs. My mother-in-law was waiting with Alexander, trying to smile, and didn't really know how to react to this. And what did 2 doctors do? They get a second opinion. Second opinion was the same thing. And then what do? Just like any parent in this room, you just say, well, I'm going to figure this out, right? Well, doctors really didn't have much suggestions, and so you become looking for answers. That was the time of Jenny Mccarthy. Jenny Mccarthy was all over the TV saying how she cured her son with autism. And so you're a doctor, you have everything at your hands. You think you can speak to anybody. I don't even talk about it because I'm not curing him. We're not curing. It's a very challenging situation at that age. So we went back to the church, right? Because we're Christians. I was brought up Catholic. I chrismated. We were going to do this. This is so important for me to go to church, get God's blessing. That's what we were going to do, and continue to do things that I felt Hippocratically did no harm. So diet. what's the big deal of eliminating dairy and gluten? I didn't think anything. Only organic foods. Those are the kinds of things that I did to try to help Michael. But this was a very important moment. This is an aha moment. Michael on the left and Alexander. And we grew up in Queens. We never skied, but we wanted to give our kids an opportunity to ski. And so Alexander skied, and we wanted desperately Alexander to have some fun. It's not all about Michael, and that's a big whole nother thing I could talk about, the SIB. But I talked to the instructor, and I said, I wish my other son could learn how to ski. And she said, I'm a special ed teacher in the off season. If he has balance, we can teach him. So sure enough, one day with the ski instructor, he was coming down on the chairlifts, coming down skiing. And to this day, Michael is a black diamond skier. I can't ski with him. We can't ski with him. He's so fast. Actually, most of the instructors can't ski with him because he's so fast. Like, that is a huge, huge lesson, that if you have people who are willing to go on the journey with you, who are willing to understand it's not going to be easy, maybe you have to do it 1 or 2 or 3 times, eventually these young people have so much ability. They just need the chance, and they need people to believe that they can do it. So I thought that was really important. We built upon that aha, again in the church. Michael, we would have to take turns taking him into the church, and because he couldn't sit for a long time. And his brother became an altar server, and he wanted to do everything his brother did. So what do 2 people who are not paying attention to somebody who's not able to verbally communicate? Michael's like, hey dummies, I'm going to tell you what I want. And what does he do? A Holy Thursday, we're standing in church. Now, you know, your church is filled with a lot of different people, not the usual congregation. So we're standing there, and we forgot the Holy Week book that day. So Dimitri goes in the back to go get the Holy Week book. Michael goes behind him. I was like, all right, Mike's going behind him. What does Michael do? He goes right down the center of the aisle, runs into the altar. I'm like, mouth open. Dimitri doesn't know what to do. And all of a sudden, after a little wrestling, Michael comes out the side door, full altar boy robe on, comes and stands next to me, and it's like, hey, I want to be an altar boy too. What does Father Alex say? If Alexander will help him, he can be an altar boy. Michael is still an altar server now. He knows the whole liturgy in Greek and in English. He mouths all the words that the priest says. And we've actually grown that program because of Michael's success. Again, loving people, willing to do the work, and willing to give them a chance. I can go on and on. Rowing is another thing. Athletic sports, the great equalizer. Rowing, for anybody who's on the spectrum and has never tried it, it's actually the best sport in the world for them because there's not a lot of language. It's very rhythmic. There's a lot of discipline. Actually, our guys are the most disciplined. They never complain about burpees. Michael was on a typical 8-man boat. Again, opportunities present themselves when you have the right people that are willing to try it with you. So Michael approaches teenage years. He's in a very good school for autism. And I'm watching the show with Dimitri, and he's singing and dancing. And I say, I don't know if any of you know, but at 21, that's the end of school. So you're in this loving environment, very supportive, and now Mike's 17, and I look and I say, what's that kid doing? What's that kid doing? And the principal says, we really don't know yet. I said, what do you mean you really don't know? We haven't figured out transitioning to adulthood and what that looks like. Well, I couldn't believe that. I went to the city to talk to other schools, the same thing. So we knew that the statistics were pretty grim out there for autistic people after school. Actually, it's got the highest rate of unemployment or underemployment of all disabilities. 90% And I've met college-educated autistic young adults. They are way below, doing work way below their ability. They're not doing college-level work. After 21, again, you lose all that, ability to have that environment that they actually thrived in school. And it pushes these young people to a life of isolation and loneliness. And I was horrified to see a 400% higher suicide rate among autistic adults. This was just unacceptable. So what do? We look at what skills Michael has as a starting point. This is in our church. You saw it in the video. They actually cook a ton. They're always cooking. And moussaka was on the volunteer of the day, and so they set him up to make the moussaka. This was an unbelievable day. I talk about it in the video. Really, he did not stop making moussaka. They finished in a day what would have taken 3 days. And I said, he can get paid for this. This is a real job. But he didn't fit into any particular school model. So what did they do? We found a young chef. She had just had a baby. She wanted some extra work. And she came to our house, and I said, please don't dumb this down. Whatever you learned in school, that's what he's going to learn. And so she said, you're right. He is actually really, really good. And I said, well, why don't we teach Mike some gratitude? He'll sign his name, Love Michael, and give the food that you're making, because we can't eat all of it, give it to grandma, give it to Ya, give it to whatever. And so that's how we started the name. We made a little logo, thinking maybe we'll just make some things and do a home business. And she said, why don't you make granola? I said, because I don't want him alone. If I'm thinking about this, other people are thinking about this. I want him to have friends. And so she said, let's make granola, because granola is a really great product that doesn't have any knives. So if you have a group of students, it's weighing, measuring, mixing, rolling, cracking, packaging. So you can complete the whole task in one day, which is also very important to people on the spectrum. They like to see completion. We formed a nonprofit because we knew that we wanted to bring in education and really make this more than even just about that. So we formed a nonprofit, and we came up with this tagline, train, educate, and employ. We wanted a commitment to education. And one of the St. Nicholas Philopticus ladies came to visit us, and they were really impressed with the education. They actually gave us a grant for the curriculum development. So I think that really impresses people. We moved our home kitchen operation into a wonderful place called Entrepreneur Kitchen. That's in Long Island City. They help mentor businesses and take it out of the home, make it a real business. And that's where other people started finding us, which I couldn't believe, that we, as a little company, were being flooded with people looking for jobs. They had been hired and fired so many times because people didn't understand their autism and what they needed to be successful. We were creating sort of a therapeutic, I'd say, work environment with visuals and structure and clear examples. This is Jenna and Damien there. And we were busting at the seams. We were renting classrooms. We were bringing special education teacher. We decided that the New York City food handler's license was curriculum was the best curriculum to teach. And not only did they learn food safety, they learned about how to be a good employee, what it meant to be empathetic to other people. And we decided to commit a space in Tribeca, which we own, to a full commercial kitchen. It has a classroom, a learning center, and 20 participants were there. And all of our employees volunteer for a little bit of time so that we can get to see for about a month to 2 months to see if if they really want the job, and then we present them with that job. I'll show you a little clip in a second. I wanted to pull this clip, this picture of when Archbishop Elpida Forrest came with Father Alex, and they did a blessing of Tribeca, and the employees were so excited. I mean, Obi was like he saw Santa Claus. It was incredible. It was an incredible day. But the fact is that we were not compromising on anything. We had a really great quality product. All the ingredients are organic. Commitment to education. We're in a beautiful space. And we actually won several awards. JetBlue gave us a Small Business Award. We were in Starbucks. Sounds like a Cinderella story, like I said, but really selling granola was not going to sustain us. And I know what I know, and I know what I don't know, and I don't know how to make this financially successful. So I reached out to a young man that I met at a fundraising event who is a talented entrepreneur. And I said, Mark, we're sitting here with my board member who's got 30 years consumer packaged goods experience, but he can't figure out how to make this financially sustainable. And we got to think differently. Maybe we're not thinking about this the right way. Would you come on and help? And he said, I can't believe you're calling me today. I just gave notice to the company I was working for, and I love to see what I can do. So I'm going to turn the the podium over to Mark Biandi. Mark is first started as a talented drummer, and so we both have that musical background, which I think is important. I think musicians think differently. And then he went on to scale a company called Back to Rock, and then worked at a company called Double Good Popcorn, took it from $5 million to $25 million. So I think that his creative outlook on this, coupled with understanding that the main reason to do this, again, is not to make money, it's to sustain this and grow it and make sure that we can give meaningful jobs to more and more young adults on the spectrum. Thank you.
Thanks, Dr. Lisa. So I will play this video for you because this statement became very apparent to me that this is way bigger than selling granola. So this is a video of when our granologists, you'll hear us refer to ourselves as granologists, a word we invented, the moment they get their jacket, their chef jacket. So they volunteer for a bit and then they're presented with a real paying job. So all of the granologists make at least $15 an hour and up. You'll see the granola on the table. Please enjoy that. Dr. Lisa reached out to me. It was a no-brainer. I said, I would love to do this. That was my first day. March 16th, 2020. If you remember, the world shuts down. I'm in Chicago. I'm like, well, let's try to figure this out. And the first thing that happened was it was devastating because we had to close the bakery temporarily. And there's a stigma around autistic people. Sometimes people think they don't form bonds and relationships. But what we realized very quickly was how much our team missed each other because they weren't going to see each other at work. So we thought, how could we leverage technology to help us? So the first thing we did is we started to offer our learning, our cooking curriculum online, and we would bring folks together. And I'm going to show you a little video of that about keeping the team together because it's really important for our team. And you may recognize Jonathan again, but this is a cool little moment. So at that moment, we knew we had to move forward. We just had to figure it out. We're going to have to do it in a new way. Can you still hear me there, Rob? Okay. So we started to look at everything we were doing, right? Sometimes in constraint, you get very creative. And we thought, well, what's happening at the bakery? So they were struggling with selling retail. I had always felt like that was going to be a challenge for us to sell this retail because we're really more about the teaching and the education. Sometimes we can work fast. Sometimes we want to slow down. So we're looking at everything. And we started to look at a very small, informal volunteer program that we had. And it was like kids in the neighborhood who wanted to earn community service. They would come down to the bakery and help out. Now we're in the pandemic, and we're thinking, well, what are those kids going to do for community service? And we start to think, well, maybe there's a way technology can help us. And maybe they can actually help us a bit with an issue that we noticed. We're spending time in the bakery preparing our team for the world of work. But we realize that outside the bakery doors, there's another issue. So what world are we preparing our team for? And a lot of times why an autistic person may have some trouble in a job is because the environment's not great. People don't understand autism. So we start thinking about ways we might be able to have this happen. So as we're preparing the team for the world of work, we think maybe our volunteers could help prepare the world for them. We start thinking about, well, what if we had this virtual volunteer program? Let's give it a try. What do we have to lose? I'm stuck in my house. We're all stuck in our houses. Let's try this out. So we come up with a way to teach volunteers about autism acceptance. We figure we can teach kids about how to be more accepting, more understanding. And we think that if they can share that information with people, they can start to educate the world on our behalf. They can connect with people. And we think, well, there's some really innovative technology that allows them to help us raise some funds. We're a charity, we need to raise money. So we give each one of these kids their own, we give them their own fundraising campaign. So, okay, how are they gonna learn? Let's do this in an innovative way. So we partner up with some of the leading education leaders in autism who happen to be autistic themselves. Here's Robin Rosigno, who's a PhD candidate, helps us put together a toolkit for kids. We then start thinking about the essence of the program. It's all about meaningful conversations and advocacy. We start asking the students to have 30 conversations with people they know. Share what you've learned about autism. Start to educate the people you know and love about what we're doing, and ask them if they would consider supporting the campaign. We give them all their own campaign page, and we start to think about, well, how does this help us make this work to be done? And so what you see on your tables is granola and a little thank you card. So we figure out, well, if someone makes a donation to the campaign, it'll send a signal back to the bakery, and then our team will hand make them granola, and we'll hand write them a thank you card, and we'll ship it right to the donor. So now it's this beautiful experience for the donor as well. A couple weeks later, they get this package. They do the humble brag, I like to call it, on social media. They say, hey, I supported this charity, but I also got this amazing granola and this thank you note. Well, all that's paid work for our team to do. And it's a really nice exchange, because the people that we're making granola for now, we know cared a little bit. They took an interest in what we're doing. This is what's helping fuel us move forward. The leads start coming. We start connecting with schools. We build this into an app experience. We launched the Love Michael app. So now it has the whole experience for our volunteers to be educated about autism, start to advocate on our behalf, and then help us raise funds. We get the program recognized by the White House. These students can earn the President's Volunteer Service Award. People start to hear about it. It starts having a huge impact. We anchored around the statement, 30 conversations can change the world. We thought, when you love someone with autism, you're always worried what the world's going to be like for them. The only way to combat that is start learning. The issue is that we have to educate ourselves about being more accepting and understanding in this community. Our volunteers are that voice. They're educating people, and they're making this a more accepting world. We didn't expect it, but we just crossed over 15,000 volunteers, 30 countries. We have a ton of work to do. There's 54 million kids out there. We'd like to reach them. What's interesting is these conversations, though, are reaching places we didn't think they'd reach. We get Kohl's department store reaches out to us, says, we heard about this volunteer program. We want to do it for our employees. 300,000 employees. We're working with them to do a really special thing. In April, I'll share that with you guys. Citizen Bank reaches out, and Ford Foundation reaches out to us. We've been trying to reach out to them for years. They come to us. So now we know this youth movement, this advocacy movement, is starting to connect with people and starting to bring this awareness to all of us. We launch more technology. We're going to be doing a virtual walk for autism acceptance in April, working with different companies, and it's really special. I think it's important to always come back to our gronologists, because there are so many autistic adults sitting home that need this opportunity. We want to replicate this. We want to bring this to more families because it's so special. And just hear a little bit about it. So we've expanded our train, educate, and employ. Now we're not just educating inside the bakery, but we're actually educating teenagers who are educating the world. I'm going to turn it back over to Dr. Lisa, because as this is happening, at the same time, there is vocational, but then there is living and housing. And so, Dr. Lisa, I'll have you walk us through a little bit about housing.
Are you guys okay? You want to hear about housing? Stretch a little bit. Michael, again, you see your brother. What is the rest of your family doing? Alexander goes off to college. He got his apartment in the city. Michael sees that, and he's not happy. And how can you express that if you don't have language? You express it in a way that's pretty hard to manage. And we had to make the really tough decision of putting him into a home, called a crisis home, because of a 1-to-1 ratio. And it was in Rocky Point, Long Island, not near us and not near the church. So the good news about that was that it gave me a chance to see, again, what is around this issue. Because when you're raising an autistic child, you can only really deal with the milestone in front of you. When you're dealing with work, you're not thinking, what's going to happen when I pass? You can only handle one thing at a time. And the statistics of that were not very good. The two options that I saw was that you just continue to raise your adult child in your home, which is what 90% of parents do who have an autistic son or daughter. They don't think they have anybody that's going to love them as much as so they just get older and more tired. And then you have group homes, and I did go to see the group homes. And although the intention, I'm sure, is really good, it's not, we could do a lot better, and that was not acceptable to me. But I did see that Michael was looking for independent life. I mean, he was definitely better in this house than with us, and I think he just needed to express, hey, I'm not a child anymore. The ways that you work with autistic children is not going to work for me. And there's so little research on adults. I mean, there's almost no research on adults on the spectrum. And of course, the burning question is what was going to happen when we were no longer around. You could imagine, I'm sure as a parent, everybody thinks about that. If they have a son or a daughter with a disability, you know how much love you have. Who's going to love them? And that's when it came to me that this is really what it's about. God is love. Love conquers all. Church is God's house. That's what we have to do. There is a model, and this is the model that we're proposing, and it's not for everybody. So it is what it is, and that is to have a cluster of homes for young men and women that is connected to a house of worship, a faith-based supportive community, in an interdenominational way. So in other words, you want to be a welcoming community, not necessarily push any one religious agenda, although the Dormition of the Virgin Mary is our home church. And in laying out what would be the difference between U.S. Autism Homes, which is the name of the nonprofit we called it, so it's a separate 501c3 focused on homes. There's a big difference between U.S. Autism Homes model, group home, and then living in a family home. The big difference in a group home, which is a certified home from the state, is that you don't get to choose where your son or daughter can go live. They can say, we have a house in upstate New York. It's not necessarily near you. They don't get to choose their housemates. They don't get to choose their staff. They don't get to fire their staff. And there's a 70% incidence of abuse in group homes. I mean, it's not good. And so we felt this was the only way, and of course we had to do it because, so we got a house, walking distance to the church to be the first model. I put my son in that house, and slowly over the year, have gotten 3 others, so there's 4 young men living in this house. They've got a garden, a backyard. We renovated the house. This is going to be their forever house, right? And we wanted them to fill up their day with meaningful things. So the church is not just something on paper. It's a full commitment to being part of these young people's lives, again, beyond the lives of the parents. So there's an active volunteer program. The guys cook in the commercial kitchen. They go out into the community, and they participate in all the functions of the church as well, whether they're festivals or dances. And basically what we can see is that all this experience and all this learning is coming together. It's coming under one umbrella. Love Michael, meaningful work, which also happens out in Southampton, education, employment, and living. And that's the model. And the model is based on a public-private partnership. And to do this, again, there is a deficit because what the government gives young people is not enough. And for families that don't have the means, there did not seem a way that this would be accessible to everybody, and we wanted it to be accessible to everybody. So I said, Mark, here's a second challenge. Let's figure this out. And I think I'm excited to say I think we really do have a solution. And it's about innovation, and that's what this is all about. When a door closes, we've got to figure this out. And Mark, why don't you come up and since it's your your little brainchild.
I'll go quick. So
go quick.
We're doing all this programming at the church, and we're offering like these incredibly engaging experiences: yoga, art classes, singing, drumming, dancing. All these amazing things are happening. We have a rowing program. It's this beautiful experience. We have celestial navigation. I didn't even know what that was, but they're learning how to map through the stars. We're doing this, and an organization happens to approach us and says, "Hey, you know you could get paid for that." And we said, "What?" And they said, "Yeah, there's actually a model where Medicaid allows for a certain amount of dollars to be paid to you, but you have to be recognized as a provider." It's difficult to do. But we figure out, well, if we can build this model, which we really believe that we can, Medicaid could fund the program. We're now operating out of the church. We're able to now fund the church while a lot of the space in the church is unused during the day between the hours of 9 and 2:30. Lots of churches are facing this. We now have this thriving, engaging community. Maybe even more than the idea that there is funding coming back to the church, and if we build this model this way. I got to hear Father Constantine talk to another priest from St. Nicholas, and he said, yes, we get to live our ministry here. That's really what this is about. There is the sense of philanthropy inside of the church and living the mission. He said, but this has been transformative to our members, to our congregation, because they're getting to embrace this community and really live the ministry. And so it's been really beautiful. So we realize now that what we think we can do is by becoming recognized by Medicaid, we can fund the program. We can help the church financially, and we also can fund the deficit for any of the members that want to live in the houses. We also think that we'll prove this out in Southampton, and then we would like to introduce this to other churches around the country. Could be any faith, but the idea is this can be replicated, and it allows the faith-based partner to live its ministry, to benefit financially, spiritually, and then it allows for this community to be served. As Lisa mentioned, it's a private-public partnership. The program that we didn't know we were building is actually called a Program Without Walls. It allows us to engage the special needs community, the autism community, and give them an opportunity to participate in all these wonderful things that we've built. Allows for lots of volunteerism, community integration. And we believe that we can fund it if we fund 30 participants in 2 houses, we can build this out. We will get the attention of the government. We will help them see what we're doing as a potential solution, and we can replicate it across the country. And that's our hope. When we saw this statement, we were so honored to be here and speak to all of you and get connected. Seeding and nurturing programs which make major contributions to the church, the nation, and the world at large, and we felt that we're on the cusp of something to really help this community who desperately needs us. Currently in New York alone, 11,000 people are on a waiting list for homes. As Lisa said, it can be your son or daughter could be placed anywhere. This allows for the family to have a lot more control, and it's a better experience, we believe, a superior experience. I'm going to toss it back to you.
Yeah, okay. We were honored this year as a Blue Dream recipient in our church, which I think is, and I think the highlight of that was the end of our presentation when Michael and Jenna Christian spoke from their own words about what autism was, and I thought this would be perfect since I couldn't bring them here. Thank you very much for your attention. I'm sorry if we went too long, but I'm happy to take any questions. And also, Paula has so graciously given us a room off the suite here. If afterwards anybody would like to come up and speak with me personally about their experience or a question they have about their family, and Mark is available to speak on behalf of the mechanics of how things run on the back end, if there's anybody interested in that aspect of our program. Again, thank you so much.
I don't know about you, but I'm so much excited after this presentation and humbled. Because these people here are doing exactly what our Lord asked us to do. And I'm humbled and at a certain point embarrassed, because we, the priests, the clergy, were supposed to do that. And these brilliant Christians are doing God's work. Thank you. I don't know, Paulette makes fun of me because I told her in a confession that I'm a member of Netflix and I'm watching some things there. And now she's making fun of me for that. But among other things that I watched on Netflix, I don't know if you have seen that, is a series called A Normal. It's a series dedicated to a young man who is autistic. And it's a long story. For those who didn't watch it, I suggest that you watch it. It really reveals a new world of people, brothers and sisters of us, who have this autism and they struggle with that, and how the family struggles with the same issue, the brothers and the sisters of the child that has autism, and it's really a revealing experience. It has been, at least for me. Of course, I had visited the Love Michael home with the Graniolas. That was really a beautiful experience. I want to congratulate Father Alex and the whole community of Kimisistis Theotokou in Southampton for embracing this initiative. I think, my dear sister and brother, that this should be a national ministry for our church. I'm ready as Archbishop to support it. How do you see this possible? I'm ready to discuss this, but I think we should embrace this ministry. This is a national ministry, and this should be a national ministry. We need to support all the brothers and sisters and the families that struggle with autism all over the nation. I think Philoptochos has a certain experience because National Philoptochos is already supporting in Crete an organization, a similar organization which struggles with autism. What about America? What about the United States? We have to do it here. We have to support this ministry to make it first a national ministry. We need to make a presentation of the clergy laity, in the upcoming clergy laity. And this is so compatible with the vision we have for our archdiocese and for our church in the second centennial. We are not concluding and celebrating the first centennial. We need vision for new ideas, new ministries for the second centennial, and I think this is a brilliant example. I'm grateful to you. Thank you.